merge because they have dissimilar operating structures. We can't merge them with the folks on the periphery, so the only real potential merger scenario would involve somebody, if we skipped over the donut to the other side and you start getting into something, does it really actually make any sense?
Yeah.
And I think this is where we need a principle from the board, because if you go and look at your map and you look at the governance resolved and unresolved, and this is the donut you're talking about. And so in the middle, you have Georgia and Fletcher, which have the same operating systems, with Fairfax in the middle, and they're one supervisory union currently. And then outside on the 89 corridor, you have Georgia's connected with South Hero that have the same operating system, but from a distance. So that's where the secretary made a principle that there was some sort of distance between the two, and that's where, as a board, how do we feel about those decisions? I think that's the nuance that we need to figure out, is if it is possible, but the secretary is saying it's not practicable because of that sort of distance between the next district and sort of the configuration within that SU. So
I'm going to take a stab. I'm going to say, rather than focusing on distance, because that could get a little bit squirrely, I'm just going to say contiguous.
I was going to use the exact same word, contiguous. I'm not interested in leaping over communities. I know that there are a couple cases like Montpelier where they voluntarily went across at least one community to get to the other one. But if it's not contiguous to me,
I think that's a key principle for us to adhere to.
but there is something in law about it not being contiguous. And can you, and Donna, could you maybe refresh where that is? It's what?
Non-operating districts.
Oh, it's only for non-operating.
Well, that's
Well,
not only, but
for
The one that I was thinking about is that in the section 9 proposal language, hold on a second, I think that it specifically said it does not need to be.
It does not need to be in a section 9.
In the section 9.
Right. So if they're proposing something to us, if they're proposing something to us that involves a non-contiguous, that's okay. But if we're going to impose something that was not proposed, I think a guiding principle should be we don't impose anything that involves a non-contiguous.
and I would go even further to say there needs to be a joint road between, there needs to be some sort of road that goes between the two communities. I'm sure there's going to be a case. Well,
might be a class 4.
that's fine, but I just don't want to get into that. But I agree with Oliver. Contiguous, and then some sort of driveway or path or something that goes between the two.
If there was an expanded narrative here, it wouldn't just be about the road, it would be about an assessment of systems relative to capacity, because you have, in this case, the supervisory unit is functioning very well, 3 districts working together. If you disrupt that for the sake of doing what? You know, the Grand Isle supervisory in a different context altogether, making some progress, but different situations. And what do you get out of that merger? You know, it's more more that kind of sort of subjective analysis rather than.
And that's where it's the subjective, and that's why it's hard to come up with a principle.
Yeah, and I'm not specifically. I don't think. I don't think we're specific. I'm not specifically talking about this one, but just in general as a principle. I don't want to get into. I don't want to be leapfrogging over towns to try to come up with these dance partners.
So, Stacy.
And I don't know if that exists somewhere else.
Contiguity.
So just clarifying, on our list of possible, principles would be that something, communities that were non-contiguous would meet the not practicable threshold?
I would say even do we want a hard, fast principle or in general? Because
these are considerations.
In a consideration.
Yeah. Unless it was actually proposed as part of an AGS. I mean, if local community says this makes sense, we should look at that. But if we don't know these communities, and there should be a presumption that if it's not contiguous, it's not practicable.
Okay, so that was added to the list. Another one for consideration was plan number 29, so just the next one over. And this is for Heartland School. And actually, no, this one was, it did bring up, because the secretary, and this is on the page 165, accordingly, because the secretary believes that it is not practical to require merger at this time because it would not advance the goals of Act 46. So again, that was a lot of the rationale. The principal adopted that it does not advance the goals of 46, which is actually what you all were just talking about. The secretary does not propose that the state board merge the Heartland School District and the Wethersfield School District into a unified union school district in the statewide plan. By the time the state board is required goes on from there. So this, again, it's bringing up that is this merger going to meet those 5 goals outlined in Act 46? And it really talks about the opportunities that focuses on here that are similar to both schools. But thoughts and comments on this one that may help us get to a principle?
Madam Chair?
Yes, yeah, John.
Earlier before the conclusion by the Secretary, she says, as a general proposition, when looking at the Hartland and Wethersfield districts, the Secretary defers to the legislature's presumption that they would be better able to meet or exceed the educational and fiscal goals. Then she goes on to say, the districts assert, however, that they wouldn't. So I guess that gets to be, well, we're going to get a lot of assertions like that. That's characteristic of many AGS proposals. So I think this gets into a question of, is the evidence presented compelling? And I'm not sure that this is in the area of practicable as much as in the area of possible. That is to say, the districts are saying that there would be no enhanced ability to respond to the goals of the law. And I think it's a judgment call for the board to decide that an alternate proposal would enhance their ability.
And I think it's in the second paragraph from the bottom here on page 164. This comes up to something earlier I heard from other board members. Except for their membership in the SU, they have no obvious connections, because there's not appear to be any commitment of the communities to create a new definition of us. There's a scant likelihood that they will realize the potential opportunities of a larger, more flexible, unified structure. More likely, unification will be blamed for any encountered difficulties. Just interesting wording to put down in the report, but we've talked about
the tuitioning patterns are different. I mean, one district sending their students south, the other one sending them north, so they don't have a common high school or that common experience.
I would just observe that the introduction of the notion of us has no standing in the statute.
And I think that's, I think there's some language in the report that.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. There is some conversation about to what extent they perceive them thinking of all students. That's one of the criteria.
Where's
the alternative government proposal, I believe, to what extent do they have a conceptualization of these being all
of our students? Yeah. That is in the law.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Any other thoughts that would help us get to a principle out of looking at some of these scenarios?
I just have to say I'm very uncomfortable with the idea that the law is the law, so I guess I have to pay attention to it, but I'm personally uncomfortable with institutionalizing parochialism, which is sort of what this is doing.
Are you running for another office, going back for? No, go
If
back.
so, I'm finished.
Okay. So another case, this one's a little bit, I think, more straightforward, but may help us, is.
But we didn't really narrow down what was our key takeaway from that example?
The communities are sending their kids in. The communities are sending their kids in different directions, so there's no us.
For high school. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess that's something we can add to think about, but lack of community connections, formalized community connections. It's one of those that we've heard, Peter, I see that we've had communities that say we don't work well together, but they actually work together on a union board or whatnot. But this is saying that they're just, and again, this is something we can dive into, agree with or disagree with. Trying to get, okay, Peter, and then.
So their central office services will remain the same then? Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
So question for the agency, these kids, they're going in different directions. The high schools that they're going to, are they in the same SU or different SU?
Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, it looks from the Secretary's proposal, Heartland's tuitioning primarily to Hartford and into the Hanover, Dresden area. Yep. Whereas Wethersfield's tuitioning to Springfield and Windsor. So in a large number of students outside of their own district.
So the K-8 students, I think that's what you're trying to ask, are they in the same SU?
Oh, yeah.
So they're in the same SU.